How's it going, film and TV fans? Welcome back to another review here on the Talbot Street Productions YouTube channel. Today we are taking a look at the brand new, recently released major motion picture film, Final Destination Bloodlines, the 6th installment in the absolutely fantastic Final Destination franchise, a franchise I love the hell out of. I think it's one of the best horror franchises out there, a franchise that has now been going for 25 years. I was lucky enough to see this film a week ago on the 9th of May in a special preview double bill that had the first Final Destination followed by this film straight afterwards. It was a really fun experience to see the first one on the big screen because it is a great film, but you know, everyone who was at that screening was there to see this one, and seeing the first one on the big screen was a bonus. Obviously, the film is theatrically released in most countries today, the 16th of May 2025, so I didn't particularly want to make a review then, just in case there was some review embargo or something like that. And I also had a holiday literally 2 days after I saw the film. I had no time to actually make this review, so yeah, I just wanted to talk about this film as a whole and this franchise, really, because I have previously reviewed all 5 previous films in this franchise, so this is a nice way to round things off. But I think going into this film, it's one of those where I'd followed it for years. You know, I still think that the 5th film is the best film in the whole franchise, closely followed by the first film, then 3, then 2, then 4. I have a soft spot for the 3rd one because it was the first one I watched, and also roller coasters, so I do have a soft spot for the 3rd one. And again, the 5th one for me was really the high point of this franchise, if you ask me. So I was skeptical because, like, there is so much you could do, but it had to be done right, and you had to have the right people involved, I think. And this film has a lot of that talent behind it. There's a very incredibly talented cast in front of the camera. There's producer John Watts, best known for Spider-Man Homecoming, Spider-Man Far From Home, and Spider-Man No Way Home. Of course, we have the ever-fantastical Tony Todd reprising his role as William Bloodworth for a final time, as this is his final motion picture appearance in a film. More about that a little bit later on. But you have people, and obviously you have the producer who's produced the entire franchise from the beginning is also involved in this film as well. So you have a steady set of creative people, and I think for me the first red flag was when it was first announced that the film would be going straight to HBO Max, as it was called at the time, now Max, now going back to HBO Max in a couple of weeks. Don't you just fucking love the world? Yeah, so it was announced it was originally going to be straight to streaming on HBO Max, but at some point between the film's announcement and release, I believe at some point, perhaps last year, it was announced that actually it would be not going straight to streaming and would be released theatrically, because they somehow, I don't know, deemed it good enough quality to do that. I mean, it is a really fantastic film, and I think it's really having the creativity of the creative limitations that a franchise like this presents, that then you then push those forward, per se, because, you know, obviously by the time they were writing these films, there were 5 films in, so they had to really think about what they would do next creatively for the kills and that. And what I really like about this film is that it ups the gore level to the point where this almost feels like a pseudo Saw film. The amount of gore that is on display, the deaths are super gory, super brutal, absolutely fantastic. Something that this franchise has always been really good at is the deaths. However, obviously in past films they've been gory, but like this film takes it to a whole nother level, and it is really great to see the combination of very evidently practical gore effects, which is something I am a huge champion of, being utilised here for its full potential. And I think while there are a lot of Rube Goldberg setups here, there are also a few that just come out the gate with the death just like that. And I think it's also the story here that really actually adds so much more to this entire franchise. They go back in time and they add more character to Bloodworth, but they also show and set up the whole story. Is that the premonition in this film that we see at the very beginning is actually one that happened almost 60 years previous, in the 1960s, and actually the person who saw the premonition managed to save everyone's life on that tower, and because of that, because it took so long for all those people to die afterwards, they had families, so there were whole families of people that shouldn't exist because their parents should have died in the disaster. And that's where we join our family in this film, who the grandmother of our protagonist is the person who saw the premonition, which means she is the second to last person to die, which means that in the premonition. So when we jump forward, and her granddaughter is seeing visions of that premonition for some reason other than the connective tissues. She then goes to visit her grandmother. The grandmother dies, and then that then sets off our entire plot for the entire film. And I think, again, it's a really great and fresh creative take on this franchise. Again, it's one of those things where I've said previously, this franchise has been going for 25 years and 5 films, so there's only, so many times people want to see this. You want to have a fresh and creative vision for it, and I think doing the story this way is fantastic. It brings so much longevity. It also gives the victims in this one a much closer connection than in the previous ones, because in all the previous ones, sure, there might have been 1 or 2 characters who were really close friends, maybe someone, a mother and a child, like in Final Destination 2, but there's never been one where it's an entire family who are all blood related, because everyone who dies in the film, they're all one big blood related family. There are some people who it's made very clear in the scene where it's all explained that the people who married into the family are not on death's list because they're not blood related to anyone. So I think laying it all out on the table like they did in that specific scene, perfect. It still plays like a Final Destination film. It still acts like a Final Destination film. It still has those core elements, and it feels like one. It still has the premonition happening. It still has one character dying and no one else believing, and then when 2 or 3 start to die, then people start getting interested in this conspiracy theory, as they call it. The music as well. Tim Wynn's score is absolutely fantastic. It still sounds and feels like a Final Destination film. I think that's something really important when you're making the 6th film in a franchise, to have it still feel like it's attached to the others while pushing things forward. You've got to think past and future, and I think that's exactly what this film does so perfectly. Of course, it goes without saying that it is very important to talk about the late, great, and absolutely fantastic talent and human being that was Tony Todd. I never got to meet the man, but his presence alone, all I have to do is say the words Candyman and Final Destination, and that is enough to understand how important Tony Todd was as an actor. And I would also like to take this time to talk about the fact that it was very disgusting that the Oscars did not mention Tony Todd in their in memoriam thing this year. There are other actors as well who were mentioned, but I believe Tony Todd is the most important because of what he did to the genre, and I actually believe that it's because he was a horror icon that they decided not to show him, which probably a shitty thing to do, but hey, here we are. But yeah, Tony's legacy is absolutely phenomenal. Like I said, Candyman is one of my favourite horror movies ever made. It's one of the best horror movies ever made. And again, you put him in something like Final Destination, where he's William Bloodworth in the 1st, 2nd and 5th film, and he also portrays the voice of a devil in the 3rd film. Bloodworth is easily the best character in the whole franchise, and again, is the only character to really connect all of the to be in more than one movie per se, other than Clear Rivers. And it's just such a menacing character in the 1st film, and even in the 5th film as well. And when you read interviews and you read things about Tony Todd and how they had sent him a contract, signed him up to do the film, but then when he came on set, the directors have gone on record and saying that it was very apparent that this probably will be the last thing that he ever filmed. So they said to him, instead of reading the script for the last few lines, just say what you think Bloodworth would say. Just say what you want to say, because they were aware that, unfortunately, the filming of Final Destination Bloodlines was the final film that Tony Todd ever filmed. So and when you see that scene in the film as well, and the last things he says and the way he says it, it's still so beautifully Tony, and I love it. I love it for that reason. I love that they managed to get him back for one last time. It does mean whatever Final Destination film comes out next, there will be no Bloodworth. But I'm going to give a light spoiler warning here because I am actually going to reveal another bit about Bloodworth in just a second, but I'll give you, like 30 seconds to brief that. But spoilers for Final Destination Bloodlines in about 10 to 20 seconds. But yeah, having Bloodworth come back is fantastic, and he really, although again, much like in the previous films, only one scene, he adds so much to that one scene, and all the actors have said, there's a featurette they filmed where they all said that working with Tony Todd was a dream, and he's a horror icon, and it's great to work with him, and it always is, I imagine, because he seems such a, while he plays quite horrifying and evil characters, in the interviews I've watched and seen, he seems like the nicest man ever, so that's fantastic. But again, what this film does so much more to the character of William Bloodworth, and actually the legacy of that character, past and present, is that in the premonition, again spoilers now, in the premonition that we see at the beginning of the film, the second to last character to die is the grandmother of our protagonist, but the last character to die is a young child called JB, who it is later revealed in the film was actually William Bloodworth himself. Which is really, really cool because it adds so much to his character, because William Bloodworth is a commoner, right? So it actually adds the fact that he spent his entire life surrounded by death, which is why he, not only having suffered what he did in that premonition and almost dying in that experience, and then going on to become a commoner, is a pretty, it adds so much to the character, it adds so much to Tony Todd's performance. It even makes you think more when you go back and watch the previous films. And I think this what I think was the entire plan for this film, is to still make a Final Destination film, but weave some new elements and new lease of life into it, unironically. And I think it really does that so well. And I really hope any of you who are fans of the franchise go and watch this one and seek it out, because it is really fantastic. I don't think it's perhaps as good as 5 or even the first one. If I were to rank them, including this film, right at the bottom will always be The Final Destination, the 4th installment. Then following up in position number 5, we have Final Destination 2. Then following up in position number 4, we have Final Destination Bloodlines. Then Final Destination 3, Final Destination 1, and then still Final Destination 5 right at the very top. So that's how I would rank all 6 films in the Final Destination franchise. Thank you so much for watching. Please go check out Final Destination Bloodlines. Support, this. I'm not going to say little because it's not, but support the film so we can have more Final Destination films in the franchise. Especially with this creative team, who I know have so many more ideas for future films. And I think there is so much more potential in this franchise. And having only 6 films after 25 years seems wrong. Having like a 15-year gap between this one and the last one is mental, so I really hope that we don't have to wait that long again. So go support Final Destination Bloodlines, go support your local cinema. I will see you all in the next one. Bye bye for now.